Meet your new go-to for a fresh and inclusive approach to health.
Wellness Rebranded is the pod where a dietitian, a personal trainer, and a mental health therapist combine perspectives to help you redesign your relationship with food, fitness, and your feelings.
Whether we're serving up juicy stories, breaking down the latest research, or dropping practical tips, we'll leave you informed, inspired, and ready to take health-promoting action.
We get you because we are you.
We've joined forces because we know that health isn't one-dimensional, and neither are you.
Tune in for real talk that cuts through the wellness and diet culture hype. Stay for the laughs, the insights, and the feel-good vibes.
Hey fam, welcome back to another episode of Wellness Rebranded. I'm Tara and I'm here with Elizabeth and Maria today. And Maria did not get back from a really cool trip, but Elizabeth did. I'm sure Maria's been somewhere cool recently, but that's not who I was thinking of. Elizabeth just got back from this super cool trip to this spa in Texas, and she had this like kind of interesting realization while she was there. So we wanted to kick it off by telling her story and then kind of chatting about digital mindfulness today. Elizabeth.
Yeah, this is something that's been on my mind so much over the last couple weeks. So I was really, really lucky. I did go spend a weekend at a spa resort, and I didn't know this until I got there. I went with two other people, two friends, and this resort has a no cell phone policy. And so they ask that when you arrive, you turn off your cell phone and basically do not have it out in any public areas anywhere on the property. And you're allowed to use it in your room, and there's like one designated area. So it was interesting right off the bat. I didn't know it until I landed on the ground and a friend mentioned it, and she was a little bit like, I don't think I like that. And my immediate reaction was, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing. And so it was interesting that we initially had like two very different reactions, but then she ended up liking it too, but I tried really hard to just full on lean into it. And so I left my phone in the room most of the time. So, and I wasn't really in my room during the day. So I was like physically separated from it for the most I've been separated from it in a long time, for an extended period of time like that, for multiple days in a row. And the property also has mindfulness is definitely like a big part of their, I guess, like vibe. And so all around the property, they had these signs that I loved that had kind of reminders to just like remind you to be mindful and present. So like one of them said, walk as if your kiss or feet or walk as if your feet are kissing the earth. Another one said like look up and be inspired, or like, hey, be present, like just things like that that really spoke to me as I was going around. And you guys, it was such an interesting experience. I could visibly feel my nervous system shifting into like a super well regulated state while I was there. My mind, I love to read. I had a book with me, so I read a lot. I thought I would do a lot of activities when I was there. I ended up not doing that many activities. I did a lot more just kind of like quiet time and reflection time. Started to notice I was like having creative ideas like more than usual. And while I was there, I went to a talk about digital mindfulness. And I can't say that there was like a couple statistics or data points that she threw out that I didn't necessarily know right off the bat. It wasn't that I learned anything groundbreaking in it, but it definitely was very thought-provoking. I've been thinking about not just social media, but the use of technology and how much I'm on screens, and having that experience of really being very much off of it for a few days, and then and seeing what happened and what that felt like has like I can't stop thinking about it. It was so incredible.
I feel like listening to this story, I totally want this, but I would be mad anxious to not have my phone. Like that, I would have definitely reacted like your friend. Like, what if there's an emergency? What if a client is messaging me? Like, even though I'm on vacation, like, what if someone reaches out and needs something? Like, it feels uncomfortable to be disconnected like that.
I would have
Yeah.
same reaction from me. She's describing it and I get a knot in my stomach like, what do you mean I don't have my phone on me 24/7? And
Really?
yes,
Mm-hmm.
and I know I've been talking to myself about minimizing the use of my phone because I recognize that you know,
Same.
I don't know if I want to call it dependence, but almost. I mean, I feel naked when I don't have my phone. And when every time I take my kids to their tutor, there's no signal outside of their house and I wait in my car. So that's sometimes half an hour to an hour that I don't have access to my phone. And it took me a while. Now I just bring a book and
You could be so productive during that time.
I fall asleep. I've taken naps. I've reading a little bit of books. I've listened to music in the car, from the radio because I cannot even do Spotify when I'm there. But it's been like, I mean, a challenge.
Well, it's interesting just to observe that reaction, right? Like what does it mean when you feel that like anxiousness, right? That there's information in that reaction, I think. And it's not to say like there were definitely times throughout the weekend where I found myself thinking about my phone or like thinking about what messages may or may not be on there.
Mm-hmm.
Not as often as I thought I might, especially after like you got over the hurdle of getting used to it, I would say. And what was really fascinating is when I went to the digital mindfulness talk, one of the things she said was like, what makes this a special place is that we do really believe in trying to help people be present and creating an environment that like you won't really find elsewhere, because even if you choose to be off your phone in your normal life, everyone around you is likely on theirs. And she said, if you start paying attention and notice what's happening here, people are making more eye contact. People are having more conversations. People are looking out. She said, what was it that she said? She said, community. She said there's like two things that people really need. Well, I know for sure one of them was community, and I think the other one was like nature, like looking out
Mm.
in nature. And what was fascinating was there was a woman there who was in the digital mindfulness talk, and when the woman, she was a therapist actually who was leading it, when she was saying all that about community and the eye contact and the more conversations, this woman had said, she was, I don't know, she was like maybe my age or a little bit older, but she's apparently single, and she immediately said, yeah, when you're single, it's very difficult to have spontaneous conversations because everywhere you go, people are on their phone and they're not really having human interaction and talking. And I just had never really thought about it. So it like stood out to me when she kind of framed it that way. And she said it's something that I'm missing I think, in my life. But then it got me thinking about, yeah, there was something really different about being around people who are not on their phones.
I see
It
this all the time actually at work because, as you know, I work in a gym and everyone in the gym has earbuds in. Everybody
Mhm.
is listening to music on their phone. And when I first started as a trainer, it was really super easy to like pick up clients because nobody had headphones, or if they did, they were like really crappy ones that you could still hear people talking. So you could just like make conversation as you're like putting the weights away, like, oh hey man, cool shirt, whatever. And eventually you get to talking and people are like, oh, this trainer is really awesome, I'm gonna buy some training, right? Now that is like next to impossible because everybody's earbuds are like noise canceling. I say stuff to people all day long that just like they just walk right by because they can't hear me. And it's usually just like, hey, how's it going? Like it's nothing important, but it has definitely made communicating with humans in this area much more difficult because everybody's so tuned in to like what they're doing on their phone or listening to that it's really hard.
and isn't that so sad when you think about it? Like that that is such a loss of human connection.
And I feel like it's interesting because people don't realize what they're missing. Like nobody
Yeah.
hears me and just ignores it. At least I don't think they do. But they're just like don't realize that like, hey, this friendly employee wants to say hi. Like doesn't even occur to them that that is something they're missing out on. They just go through their day as normal.
No, that sort of heard people say like, yeah, we're more connected to these computers and social media and all that than connected among us as human beings. And that's concerning from a therapy standpoint, is very concerning.
Yeah, and I think there's loads of research that even those incidental conversations that, maybe people used to have more more of or have period, even in the grocery store, right? Like having a positive social interaction, even something simple with a stranger like that, actually helps lower cortisol and stress levels. I'm pretty sure that I have seen
Mm-hmm.
research on that.
I think I have
Um,
too.
and as humans, we're wired for connection. So not only are we missing the connection when we're spending all the time on our phones, but also, we're so busy looking at what's happening here on the screens that like there's a whole world of things happening around us that we're not really a part of, right? Your attention is here.
Yep.
And I want to share two things that I think are important. One, I've realized in my case, I'm even using my phone as a coping skill. Like when I feel overwhelmed or I'm in a bad mood or even when I feel sad, going to my phone is a way to shut off my emotions, to disconnect from people around me, from what I'm experiencing, from what I'm feeling. And that, I mean, I'm doing work on myself because that's concerning, because then as soon as I'm having an uncomfortable moment in my house or at work, I go straight to my phone to look for that dopamine hit of
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, it can be exhausting for your brain, those switches of dopamine, and then but let me stay here and avoid that real world instead of fixing it for me, because then you tell me these things, how I'm not allowed to use my phone, and I'm like, oh my god, what do I do? How do I have a conversation with myself and connect with my own feelings if I've been hiding them behind the phone for so long? So really pay attention to that, because it might feel and look like it's something that is helping us, but is it really? And then the other thing is attention. For me, it affects my attention so much. I think I'm doing 20 things at the same time, and I'm not, and I am working on something, and then my phone beeps, or I'm so used to go back to Instagram and check what's going on, and then I wasted 20 minutes scrolling on Instagram, and then I go back and look at my computer, and I'm like, what was I doing? And then my brain is working double for this constant distraction. It's exhausting.
So one of the things, I'm so glad you brought that up, because in that digital mindfulness talk, she recommended a couple of like further resources. And I started reading the book Stolen Focus based on kind of her recommendation. And it's fascinating, and also, if I'm being honest, a little bit sad and depressing. But it's building the case, and they're through so many different ways that none of us can pay attention anymore. And even when we think we're paying attention, we're not paying attention, because either your thoughts are getting pulled somewhere else, or you're physically getting pulled somewhere else so I've started to notice it. I love to read. I've always loved to read my entire life. And I notice now, frankly, I notice it sometimes when I'm watching TV, if I'm watching a show or when I'm reading, for no reason at all, in the middle of reading or in the middle of watching a show, I'll find myself picking up my phone and checking what's happening on there. And that's even something I'm interested in what's
I
happening
do
in the
the
book,
same
or
thing.
what's happening on the show. And to me, that was like such the like a crystal clear example of what he's trying to say in the book, which is that all of us, and he also says in the book that multitasking is a myth. No, the human brain cannot multitask. If you think you're
Correct.
multitasking, you're
Mm-hmm.
deluding yourself.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
um and I'm finding it to be a really fascinating read. I would actually love to invite him to come and talk with us on the pod about his findings. But yeah, the whole thing just
I
really
just
has
added it
me,
to my Libby wish list.
yeah, it really has me evaluating my digital habits, and again, not just social media but all of them, and how much time I'm spending on devices and how they make me feel. And it's funny, coming out of that experience at the resort, I was like, oh, all fired up, I'm only going to have designated times of the day, and I'll be on it then and then not. And I had all these kind of things in my head that I was going to do, and I went right back to my normal patterns, my more normal life. And it was even more like the contrast was even more stark because when I was there, you know, the world is moving really fast right now, right? Like you could pick up your phone at any given moment and it seems like there's a huge headline about something big happening. Well, imagine missing 3 days of that and then picking it up and looking at it. I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like what? It just was like such a bizarre contrast to observe my brain going through.
That
Um,
somehow feels healthier though, because instead of getting hit with like, oh my gosh, every like time you pick up your phone, now you're just getting like one big hit and you can like absorb and then move forward.
Well, it's interesting you say that because one of the things that he says in the book is imagine 100 years ago when information traveled really slowly, right? Maybe something happened on the other side of the world. You likely weren't going to hear about it for a while. And then
Mhm.
when you did hear about it, it would be in the form, most likely, of a long form article that you would read. And then you would have lots of time to sort of digest it and reflect on it and think about it. And you process it entirely differently in that scenario versus when you pick up your phone and you read one headline and then you turn here and you read another headline and you're there's he says it's like he gives the analogy of it's like your brain is actually meant to process information far more effectively the first way that I described, and then the second way of our modern environment is like you're drinking water from a fire hose. Like your brain is
Yeah.
incapable, even if you had better attention skills, your brain's literally incapable of processing it that way. Like it was really interesting to think about it that way.
I'm
Yeah,
just like the imagery of trying to drink from a fire hose is like sounds really
But
painful.
that is what it is like to live in
yes.
our modern day world, right?
Totally.
Think about how much information is coming at you in how many different forms in every minute of every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and let's think about kids for a minute with developing
Hmm.
brains and all this information
Hmm.
coming in. I'm sure is not that good. But I wanna say no, point out something quickly here. It's not that we're saying that social media or technology or any of that are bad, right? We are just inviting you all to engage in a way that is intentional or engage in a
Hmm.
way that it matters to you, bring awareness and intention on how you use technology. And again, bring awareness of those habits and patterns and how you were saying, Elizabeth, how is your mood when you use this technology? Like use it in a way that supports your mental and emotional well-being because it's super, super easy to fall into that pattern or trap,
Hmm.
for lack of a better word. So the invitation is to bring awareness because it does have an effect, good and bad, and we
Hmm.
want to be informed of that.
I'm so glad you phrased it that way because one of the things that she said that I really appreciated about her talk was she emphasized over and over again, like, this isn't bashing technology. There is a useful place for it. But, you know,
Hmm.
her point was, but you have to understand the point of social media or the point of certain technologies. They're designed to get you to spend as much time on them as humanly possible.
Correct.
Yes.
And they are, you know, they're working most effectively from their perspective, the people who are creating it, when it's doing that. And most of us are walking around like, yeah, you kind of know that. I mean, you do know it maybe intellectually, but you're not living your life as if you know
Hmm.
that, right? We're just like, oh, it beeped and I have to answer. And oh, it there, like I got, you know, and so her point was like, observe what's happening, know what the aim is of the technology, and then figure out how you can find the balance and intention. And she had some really good tips, which one thing I did based on what she said is her suggestion was to get all of the apps off of the main screen of your phone so that when you pull it up, you just look at whatever your picture is with nothing on it. She said that way, if you're using
Oh,
it as a clock, when you pick it up, you'll see what time it is, but your attention isn't going to be drawn. Then the other thing she suggested is turn off literally every notification. Do not allow any notifications to come up on your phone. And so I will say, even just doing those two things, I do find myself, it is a little bit harder, or you know, like when I don't immediately look at my phone. Although one thing that bugs me, I realized, is if I did it. But if the last screen you were on had all the apps, when you open it again, it goes to all the apps, not your first one. So now I have to get in the habit of like pushing it back to the beginning before I turn it down. But for the first time, I didn't realize how many notifications I was getting. I didn't think I had many notifications on my
Right.
phone, but now that I've literally gone through every single app and turned them off, all of a sudden I'm like, oh gosh, there's like 10 text messages there and I didn't even know. And I kind of like it. It kind of makes me feel like, haha, you tried and I didn't know. Like
I
So
like that. I really like that because it makes me think we have the right to design what our
yeah,
relationship with technology is going to be. And not
yeah,
only talking about digital mindfulness, but also digital boundaries that Tara brought up
yeah.
is how do I want my relationship to be and in what ways to support myself again. And I love those two ideas.
Yeah,
I
the other
have an
one, oh,
acquaintance that is like very into digital boundaries, and he does exactly those two things that you mentioned, Elizabeth, putting all the apps on like the next screen or whatever and turning off all his notifications. But he takes it one step further in that when he gets home, he has this super comfy chair that's like right by his front door, which I can't even picture what that looks like, but this is what he says. And he has a plug right there, and he plugs his phone in, and then he goes into the home and does his like life stuff. And if he wants to get on his phone, he'll go back and sit in the comfy chair and look at his phone, but he doesn't bring the phone into the home. Like him and his wife have just decided that this is something they're not doing. Like on the flip side, like Marcus and I have our phones next to us like at every waking moment, and when we go to bed, we plug them in on our nightstand like it's our alarm clock. Like it's very we're very like attached to the phone. So it's definitely created some like thought process in my family of like, dude, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna continue the way we are? Are we gonna make some changes? Are we gonna make sweeping changes? I also find that like the summary that your phone sends you, for me, it's on Sundays. I don't know if it is for everybody, where it's like, here's how many hours you were on your phone every day, and here's what apps you were on during those hours. I think that's very super telling. I kind of like give myself a pass on some stuff, good or bad, I don't know, but because I do virtual training, right? So yesterday I trained like 7 clients virtually. So I was on my phone for like 5.5 hours doing that. So my total screen time was like really big, but it was also like work. So I don't really feel bad about that. But then if I see like, oh, I did 2 hours of Instagram, then I feel a little bit differently about that. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So
I
it
love the
gives me some
idea.
more data to help like create my boundaries.
Yeah. I love the idea of having that chair. My husband and I have always plugged our phones in nowhere near our bedroom. Just, I don't even, it wasn't intentional when we first started doing it. It just where we happened to plug them in before we were all so consumed with our phones. And then it's just a habit that we've gotten into. But I love the idea of keeping it plugged in other times during the day, kind of a way, not necessarily with you. That's not something I do. But it definitely also sparked a conversation with my husband and I when I came back, because I was like, I really loved being present with the people that I was with. And I noticed that a lot of times when we go out to dinner, you'll pick up your phone a lot. And like, I think we should make a pact that if we're going to go out to a restaurant, we don't get on our phones. And I mean, in an ideal world, I would love to leave them in the car in that scenario. So you really can't pick it up, but I don't know if I can get him on board with that. But we did at least agree that we wouldn't bring them out at the dining at a restaurant anymore.
How's that
Um,
going for you?
I was thinking in my head as I was saying, we haven't been to a restaurant since. So I'll report back.
That's funny.
I like
He
You
no
that.
know,
longer wants to eat out with me.
this whole conversation kind of makes me think of this book I'm reading called The Anxious Generation. And it's all about kind of like why the mental health struggles of Gen Z have been more pronounced than the previous generations, right? Like I'm a millennial. What are you guys like Gen X's? Are you millennials too?
Oh, thanks for the call out, Tara. Yes, I am a proud Gen Xer.
I don't even know what I am. What am I? 1977? I don't know.
I think you're Gen X too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you are.
Yeah, so I'm like an Xennial, right?
P.S. We're the cool generation.
That's what they always say. Gen
Agree.
Xers are very confident about how cool they are. Millennials, I just think we have so much anxiety we don't even think about it. But
I want, can I interrupt your story for like just a 10
yeah,
second thing? I one time went to this fascinating conversation about the different like generations and how they communicate with one another with my husband at a conference. And one of the things they did say that is unique about Gen X is that we actually grew up without all the technology. So we're very accustomed to like we know that world, but then we also it was introduced enough early in our lives that a lot of us can adapt to it. So we have like one foot in, one foot out, which makes us uniquely positioned to sort of be able to relate to boomers and millennials after, which I thought was really interesting. But anyway, we
definitely
digress.
the
Go ahead.
case in your situation. I feel like
Well,
you
I
relate
don't know.
well with everybody.
I don't know.
But
Maybe
yeah, the
sometimes.
anxious generation is really more about Gen Z and how their mental health problems are like skyrocketing. And the premise of the book is that it's because of like early introduction of smartphones and social media, and then combined with like the lack of free play, like the world
Hmm.
maybe, I don't know for sure, but like it seems like it's more dangerous, so we kind of like hold on to our kids a little tighter than like our parents held on to us, for example. So they're having like less free play, less unsupervised, play. The overprotectiveness is, changing the way that their brains are operating. And they're becoming like almost less resilient because of it. So I'm not all the way done with the book yet, guys, but I will keep you posted because it definitely, like, the first two chapters gave me some anxiety, to be honest.
Oh no. I
I was
really
like,
want to read that. That's been on my list.
my kid is like 4, and I'm like, okay, so we're never getting him a phone, obviously, and never doing social media. And I already know it's going to be problems sooner than I would like it to be.
Yeah, well, I will say it seems like since my kids were the definitely like the I think the first generation that really started getting all those devices in school and it was kind of I think of it as like a big experiment that
Yeah.
happened on them. And now like schools are realizing how unhelpful and unhealthy it is and taking steps to get them back out of schools, which I wish would have happened when my kids were there. But nonetheless, we digress a bit from our topic, I suppose. So, what's your takeaway, guys? Digital mindfulness.
My takeaway is to keep taking a look, like look hard at myself and my use of technology, really with the goal in mind of supporting my wellness, and not only mine, but that of my kids as much as I can. I'm gonna need like a strategy even harder than you guys. I need more than that chair at the beginning. I need to put for myself what I put for my kids, which is like after 5 hours, your phone turns off and you cannot use it anymore. I need that. It's like I need some help. But just, yeah, just being intentional and aware. That's my takeaway, to not rob me from what I really care, which is that connection with people, because I don't look at my phone at all when I'm really connected with somebody. Yeah.
I think for me, my takeaway is similar, been that, I don't have to limit my child's like screen time yet because he doesn't have a phone or a tablet or anything like that. And we're not home enough to watch TV, to be honest. But to model that healthy behavior, like he is starting to notice how often we're on our phones. So I really want to be a good example for him that like people are the most important thing, you know? Marcus and I, we went on our first date years and years and years ago. And he told me in the middle of our date, he was like, wow, you haven't looked at your phone once. And I remember thinking, like, well, duh, I'm on a date with you. Like, I'm out here with my best friend. Like, of course, I'm not going to look at my phone. So for me, then that was shocking for him because other dates that he had had in the past didn't have that same experience. So for me, I think my big takeaway is that technology isn't bad. We just want to make sure that we're controlling it and it's not controlling us. And I like that we have these tools to kind of set boundaries on it and make those boundaries habit. So by like turning off some of the less important notifications or by leaving your phone in certain places, like that's like some things that I think I want to implement in my life.
Yeah, I love that. Mine is honestly, to continue reflecting on it. And I really like that idea of plugging it in somewhere in the house and leaving it. I think for me, the key to staying off it is actually being physically separated from it. Like I genuinely want to be off of it a lot, or a lot more than I am. And it's so much easier when it is not with me,
Yeah.
because if I have it with me, I will, even without realizing, pick it up and look at it. And I also want to connect in different ways with the real world, not the digital world more.
Same.
So, but we would love to hear your thoughts on the conversation around digital mindfulness. Seriously, I actually am very fascinated to hear what our listeners think about this. So send us a message. If something we said resonated with you, drop us a note. Let us know if you have a question or a thought or a difference of opinion. We want to hear that too. So reach out. This is a community. We want this to be a two-way conversation. Don't forget to go to @Wellness Rebranded, download our free self-care planner. It's awesome. You'll love it. And we will see you back here next week for another episode, right, ladies?
That's right.
See you then.
See you then.
Thank you for listening. If you want to connect with me outside of this podcast, you can find me on Instagram at coaching_therapist.
I'm Elizabeth. You can find me at Elizabeth Harris Nutrition or in my Facebook group, Health and Healing with Intuitive Eating.
And I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Tara DeLeon Fitness. Guys, if you loved this episode or any of our other episodes, we would love it if you would leave us a review on Apple Podcast. It really, really helps us get the non-diet word out to the rest of the world. So please leave us a review.
Yes, thank you.